Celebrating a decade of achievement, this is CNN.
A line has been drawn in the sand. The United States has taken a firm position, and I might say we're getting strong support from around the world for what we've done.
President Bush warns Iraq and Saddam Hussein, but the dictator remains defiant in the face of growing U.S. military might in Hussein's backyard.
This is CNN's Prime News with Bernard Shaw in Washington and reporting from the CNN Center in Atlanta, Lou Waters.
Good evening. As the Persian Gulf crisis continues, these bold words today from the powers in Baghdad. Quote, "The people of Iraq are ready for confrontation until victory," end quote. President Saddam Hussein appeared undaunted by the U.S. military buildup in the Middle East. He announced through a spokesman that Iraq will be, quote, merged with Kuwait. This as Hussein met with his puppet regime in Kuwait, installed by invading Iraqi troops nearly a week ago. In other developments in the Gulf today, the first U.S. troops and warplanes began taking up positions in Saudi Arabia to defend that country against a possible Iraqi attack. President Bush formally announced the deployment, part of what he calls a multinational force. More American forces, airmen, Marines, fighter jets, and support units have been on the move at several U.S. military bases. And American warships are moving closer to the action in the Persian Gulf. The aircraft carrier Eisenhower has passed through the Suez Canal into the Red Sea. Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak says Iraq may face, quote, a terrifying and destructive aggression. But Mubarak denied earlier reports that he's sending troops to Saudi Arabia. He did leave the door open for an all-Arab peacekeeping force in the region, and he called for an emergency Arab summit. So did Jordan's King Hussein. At least 16 Arab leaders say they will meet in Cairo tomorrow. No word on whether anyone from Iraq will attend. King Hussein calls the meeting the last chance for Arabs to resolve an Arab conflict without further violence.
Likening the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait to a blitzkrieg, President Bush told Saddam Hussein, quote, "A line has been drawn in the sand, almost daring him to cross into Saudi Arabia." While the president has deployed troops, warships, and fighter planes in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region, he's still counting on international pressure to force Iraq to retreat from Kuwait. Our senior White House correspondent Charles Bierbauer reports.
President Bush says the U.S. is not at war, but he has sent American forces to defend Saudi Arabia.
No one commits America's armed forces to a dangerous mission lightly, but after perhaps unparalleled international consultation and exhausting every alternative, it became necessary to take this action.
Bush expects Arab nations, too, to come to Saudi Arabia's assistance, but there are clearly American interests in this action.
Our country now imports nearly half the oil it consumes and could face a major threat to its economic independence.
The U.S. mission for now lies within Saudi Arabia. The president is counting on United Nations economic sanctions to convince Saddam Hussein to withdraw Iraq's troops.
They're a poor country in a sense because he's squandered much of the resource on military might. And there are some indications that he's already beginning to feel the pinch, and nobody can stand up forever to total economic deprivation.
The president sent U.S. troops to Saudi Arabia after considerable consultation with his allies. On Capitol Hill, he has found bipartisan support.
American interests and our long-standing ties with Saudi Arabia make the president's decision to help defend Saudi Arabia the correct one.
Defense Secretary Cheney and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Powell, have been briefing members of Congress, and the White House is notifying Congress of the military action under terms of the War Powers Act. Several Democrats did raise caution flags.
If Iraqi forces attack American forces, then Iraq is at war with the United States.
And there are American civilians already in some jeopardy in Iraq and Kuwait.
Now, the wild card are the hostages. He has learned from history that we are very vulnerable to the pleas about hostages. And that is a problem that we're going to have to deal with if it gets into a shooting war.
The president acknowledges, too, that Saddam Hussein is unpredictable and dangerous.
Anytime you deal with somebody who has used chemical weapons on the battlefield, you are concerned about it.
Bush was showing both concern and the strain of finding a response to Saddam Hussein.
I'm the Iraqi, sir.
I'm in the Iraqis room. Thank you very much. It's been a long night.
Well, the long nights are hardly over. The president must wait for his troops to get in place in Saudi Arabia, wait to see if the Arab League takes any action at its meeting in Cairo tomorrow, and wait to see what Saddam Hussein's reaction is to the twin pressures of military force and economic sanctions. Bernie?
Charles, is this crisis having an impact not only on the federal budget, but the federal budget deficit?
You bet it is. And the president indicated today that he's anxious to speak out, says he feels uninhibited now about speaking out about the stalled budget process, but he didn't want to do so today. In fact, he had planned a speech or two this week on the budget. His attention, needless to say, has been directed elsewhere. But the president did meet with his budget advisors this evening to begin reevaluating the budget process, given the impact and the potential impact of oil prices on the deficit and what it would do here. As one senior administration official put it, if the long-term oil impact moves us closer to recession, we might want to rethink the mix in that budget package. Bernie?
Thank you, Charles Bierbauer, reporting live from the White House. This programming note, we are still awaiting the appearance in our New York bureau of Iraqi's ambassador to the United Nations. If and when he shows up, we will interview him live.
And still ahead on this Prime News, we'll be talking with former CIA Director Stansfield Turner.
And we'll hear how Americans feel about the growing U.S. military presence in the Persian Gulf.
I think President Bush is very well informed, and I think it's a good decision.
I'm not sure if it's worth people dying for yet.
Well, I'm glad I don't have to go. I can tell you that.
And we'll get an update tonight on troop movements at military bases around the United States.
Prime News is brought to you by Infiniti, a new concept in luxury cars.
The street goes up, the street goes down. The Infiniti M30 luxury sports coupe reads the road like it wrote the book. The street goes down. The street goes up. And you settle back in the plush leather and go, this is fun.
Do you know what open-end mutual funds are?
The Wall Street Journal Guide to Understanding Money and Markets tells you in clear, simple English.
Do you know how to spot trends in stocks?
And what stock options are?
And zero coupon bonds?
And the difference between Treasury bills and Treasury notes?
Everything you want to know about the sometimes baffling world of money and investing is in this remarkable 120-page book. And now it's yours free when you subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. Call now and you can have 13 weeks of the Wall Street Journal and this valuable 120-page Guide to Understanding Money and Markets. That's 13 weeks of the Journal for the news and ideas you need every business day. And this guide free, which tells you everything you want to know about money and markets, now for only $34. Call toll-free 800-445-8000. Today's Wall Street Journal. Faster, tougher, smarter. Call 800-445-8000 now.
Each week, when news breaks, quick images are captured of what happens and where. Headlines change, and newsmakers pass in and out of the public eye. But one show goes beyond the images, reflecting on the complete story with historical accounts, world reaction, and new developments. The Week in Review is more than just images. It's the whole picture. Sunday, 2 Eastern, only on CNN.
Music. Start your move on 3. Resolve 2. All right. Here we come. Ready, 1 center. And lose mic. Double resolve and cue.
To put into perspective the size of the U.S. military commitment in the Persian Gulf, consider this. It's the largest deployment of U.S. forces outside the Western Hemisphere since the war in Vietnam. For more on the U.S. military's role in the Gulf crisis, CNN's Carl Rochelle, live at the Pentagon. Good evening, Carl.
Good evening, Lou. By air and by sea, you are right. It is the most massive military deployment by the United States since the Vietnam War. Some troops are already on the ground there. Some warplanes are already on the ground there. In addition, 2 aircraft carriers are in position in the Persian Gulf area. A third is on its way to the Mediterranean from the United States. Here is more on the military buildup in the Saudi Arabia area from Pentagon correspondent Wolf Blitzer.
Pentagon officials have revealed the scope of the U.S. involvement so far in the Persian Gulf crisis. Almost 50,000 American servicemen, ground troops, flyers, and sailors are encircling Iraq. More than 100 U.S. F-15 jet fighters and other aircraft have deployed to Saudi Arabia, along with elite paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and many more are on the way.
Our purpose in sending forces at this time to the Gulf region and to Saudi Arabia in particular is to deter any further Iraqi aggression.
The nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Eisenhower has moved through the Suez Canal into the Red Sea. The Independence Carrier Battle Group, with its own fighters and bombers, is already at the mouth of the Persian Gulf. And the Saratoga is on the way to the Mediterranean. In all, close to 50 American warships have mobilized in response to Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. But Pentagon strategists recognize there are serious threats facing U.S. forces. A major reason Saudi King Fahd asked for direct military assistance was U.S. satellite photography showing Iraqi ground-to-ground missiles deployed in Kuwait and hinting at the presence of chemical weapons, which Iraq has used against Iran and its own citizens.
The Iraqi armed forces do have chemical weapons, artillery delivered as well as delivered by other means. They have used them in the past. It's a threat that we're concerned with.
U.S. troops have trained to protect themselves from chemical weapons with special clothing and medicine. Powell says these forces are prepared for the Iraqi threat, but defense experts say doing so could make their job harder.
One has to take this very seriously, and the U.S. forces are certainly equipped with protective gear. It slows you down, and it's not particularly pleasant to wear in that desert heat, but you can protect yourself.
The strongest U.S. asset against the Iraqis is air superiority. B-52 bombers are on standby in Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, and F-111s are in Turkey. F-15s and AWACS surveillance planes are in Saudi Arabia. But analysts say such air power won't be enough if Saddam Hussein stages a ground offensive across Saudi oil fields.
If it comes down to an invasion of Saudi Arabia, then the troops that we've sent now are nothing but the beginnings of the force we would want to send.
Pentagon officials insist U.S. actions are strictly defensive, but privately they make clear that if necessary, U.S. warplanes could undertake preemptive and punitive strikes against strategic targets, including Iraqi air bases, weapons depots, and industrial complexes. The purpose would be to disrupt the Iraqi military machine and to undermine the morale of the troops. The ultimate objective? To get rid of Saddam Hussein. Wolf Blitzer, CNN, the Pentagon.
Well, the first step is to get enough forces into place to assure that Iraq cannot make an easy invasion into Saudi Arabia. That is rapidly taking place. And for now, the U.S. says that is all it plans, a defense of Saudi Arabia. But at some point in the future, the question must be addressed of whether to try to get Iraq out of Kuwait and how. Lou?
Carl, we've just heard from Wolf Blitzer that the United States is ready to fight a chemical war. Since that ugly specter has been raised, several questions have come up, including how we would respond to a chemical war in that area, and would we respond in kind?
Lou, that is the real question, and the question is whether we would fight, how we would fight chemical war. We are ready to defend against the use of chemical weapons. The troops that are over there have been sent the necessary clothing. It requires both clothing and breathing apparatus. The stuff that you use, the mustard gas, is a blister agent that can cause blistering. It can also damage the lungs. The nerve gas is extremely deadly. The United States does have chemical weapon capability. We have stocks of nerve gas and we have stocks of mustard gas. We have not used such weapons in the past, and I think we would be reluctant to use them in the future. But if Saddam Hussein uses them against American forces, I would not be surprised to see the president take some action. It could even go to the point of a tactical nuclear weapon. I don't know that. I'm not trying to make strategy or policy for it, but using nerve gas or chemical weapons against American troops would be a tremendous escalation, something that hasn't been done since World War I.
All right, Carl. Carl Rochelle at the Pentagon. And now to Bernie Shaw.
Thank you, Lou. Joining us now from our New York bureau is Abdul Amir Al-Anbari, Iraq's ambassador to the United Nations. Mr. Ambassador, welcome. First question.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. First question to you is this. Did Saudi Arabia, a brother Arab state, surprise you by inviting into its country American troops and planes?
Well, to my knowledge, Saudi Arabia did not volunteer the invitation to the American forces. You know when did it come? It came only when Secretary of Defense, visited that country, apparently requesting them that they should be requested to come and visit.
Are you not, sir, insulting the intelligence of the Saudi people when you say that they did not volunteer?
Well, we have made it very clear to everyone, certainly to the United States government, through the highest level, that Iraq has the deepest respect and appreciation of the Saudi government and Saudi people, and we never harbor any attention. It's not in our policy or interest to invade or attack Saudi Arabia. We made that very clear, and we have a non-aggression pact with the Saudis. So why insist that the Iraqis would like to invade Saudi Arabia? This is the puzzle. The only interpretation for that, as far as my government is concerned, as far as many people in this country, in the United Nations, in the Middle East, is the whole operation is to prepare for an aggression against Iraq.
Dr. Al-Anbari, if you respect the Saudi people and their territory,
yes,
why does your nation have Scud missiles aimed at the Saudi border?
Well, I'm not military expert, Mr. Shaw, but don't forget that the whole situation is being accelerated, not by the Iraqis, but by the introduction of foreign forces in the region. And we have to be prepared for all the eventualities. We have already started hearing that, well, although American forces there for defensive purposes, but they might, now it's might, tomorrow might be something else, launch a preemptive attack against Iraq. So
Mr.
we see
Ambassador,
the process of escalation.
Mr. Ambassador, are you not being a little disingenuous with our viewers who are watching you in 90 countries? Your country today annexed Kuwait after your country took military action against Kuwait last week. The American action followed your country's action.
Well, Mr. Shaw, are you cross-examining me or you are asking me questions, giving your opinion?
That was
you
a
ask me
question.
about the invasion. Wait a minute.
That was a question.
You are asking me whether we were invading or thinking to invade Saudi Arabia. I answered you. You shift the question to Kuwait. Tell me about the Kuwait. I will answer you.
Which
So
came
what do you want
first?
about Kuwait?
Mr. Ambassador, which came first? Your country's annexation of Kuwait or the American presence in Saudi Arabia?
Well, listen, let's face it. Here, there is a question of double standard. There are many countries have been occupied for more than 20 years. And we have in mind, of course, the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, of the Gaza Strip, and so on. Yet the American government, the Security Council, have done nothing, even though there was a resolution 242 asking Israel to withdraw from that. So it is basically really not a question of democracy or sovereignty of a small country. Let's face it, it is your national interest to protect your oil supplies. But here again, the irony that neither Iraq nor anyone else threatened the oil interests of the United States. As a matter of fact, much of our oil used to be exported to this country. So why making the whole fuss?
Mr. Ambassador, if your troops confront American troops, will Iraq use poison gas and chemical weapons?
Let us hope not. We made it clear that all our preparation are for defensive purposes. We will never attack anyone, certainly not a great country such as the United States, unless we are attacked.
You say, let us hope not, but you cannot give assurances that chemical weapons will not be used.
Well, again, I said that our position is defensive and we would not attack anyone unless we are attacked by that particular party. As a matter of fact, just today, a military spokesman in Iraq announced that our intelligence information has received data indicating that the Israeli government have repainted some of its planes with American insignia, providing the crews with American identification with the view of launching an attack against Iraq, hiding the identity of the aggressor.
I have two last questions, sir. Why are 38 Americans being held in Baghdad against their will?
Well, that was a general sort of order given the situation in the country. It applies to the Iraqis, to Arabs, to foreigners, but I assure you, we are fully aware of the humanitarian aspect of this issue, and I hope soon they would be let free the way they would like to go.
When is soon, sir?
Well, I'm in your studio here. Really, it's very difficult to determine soon, but I assume it's a matter of few days rather than weeks.
Will President Hussein attend the Arab Leaders Summit in Cairo tomorrow?
I really don't know, but I know that King Hussein made the proposal today and we have the highest respect for the king. But whether we are attending on the highest level or on any particular level, we are not, I'm not sure of that. However, we would like to have the problem solved within the Arab League, within the Arab framework, rather without the intervention of any foreign power.
Dr. Ellen Berry, I know you had a difficult time getting through the traffic, and we thank you for joining us tonight on Prime News.
Well, I thank you. It's my pleasure.
You're welcome, sir. Lou?
We will have more on the developments in the Middle East, including a report from CNN's Christian Amanpour in the Gulf.
If you like the look of money, visit your Volvo dealer, where you'll find great prices on all Volvo 240 and 740 models. So see your dealer soon. The prices never looked better.
Factory-sponsored short-term lease offer ends August 31st.
Has this ever happened to you? What a mess. This shirt and blouse have had it. Or have they? Now there's a simple way to deal with the most difficult stains. DD7, a super concentrated formula that removes stains but won't harm fabrics. Now where's the ink? Delicate silk? Incredibly clean. Tar, iodine, blood, rust. DD7 gets rid of them all. Dull gray window shears restored to a like-new whiteness thanks to a soak in DD7, a whiz on carpets, and upholstery. We've stained these hands with ink, iodine, and car grease. DD7 and a little water removes the stain instantly, even under the fingernails. Imagine this as your washing machine. Dye from a red sock, ink, and iodine. A little DD7 in the final rinse, and goodbye to unwanted stains. Order DD7 today for just $14.95, or we'll double your order for only $5 more. That's 2 tubes for only $19.95. If DD7 doesn't work this quickly and easily for you, simply return the unused portion for a refund. Have your credit card ready and order now.
Call toll free 1-800-241-6600. That's 1-800-241-6600. Or send $14.95 for 1 tube, or save $10 by sending $19.95 for 2 tubes, plus $4 shipping to DD7, Box 8990-M, Buffalo Grove, Illinois. That's DD7, Box 8990-M, Buffalo Grove, Illinois.
Now, a report from the Persian Gulf. Iraqi television broadcast calls today for Arab solidarity from Saddam Hussein and his new government in Kuwait. But the broadcasts also contain threats for those who fail to unite. CNN's Christian Amanpour is in the Gulf.
It was an introduction that signaled celebration. A picture of Saddam Hussein, but not the Iraqi leader himself. Instead, an announcer reading a statement supposedly signed by the new Iraqi-installed Kuwaiti government, making it quite clear that Iraq has claimed Kuwait.
History provides that Kuwait is part of Iraq. We've always drunk from the same water.
The announcement also accused the deposed ruling family of allowing the West to divide and weaken the entire Arab world. It called upon all Arabs to follow Saddam Hussein.
Our hero, Saddam Hussein, is the hero of the whole Arab world. Put ourselves before our leader, Saddam Hussein.
Then a statement from Saddam Hussein's government. In an attempt to appeal to the Arab underclasses, it accused the West of having occupied the Arab world, of installing leaders who kept the region's wealth in their own hands. The statement called for Arabs to unite behind Saddam Hussein, and it issued a warning.
In the absence of unity, negative repercussions will prevail across the Arab world.
Along with that threat, Saddam Hussein's statement also made clear who he considers to be the leader of the Arab world. He called Baghdad its historic capital. There was no mention and no response to the U.S. troop deployment in Saudi Arabia, no response to President Bush's insistence that Iraq evacuate Kuwait and restore its, quote, legitimate government. As international warships continue to converge on the Gulf, Britain announced it too would send naval and air forces to defend Saudi Arabia. And experts say Saddam Hussein would be taking a huge military risk by by invading the Saudi kingdom.
He'd be crazy to invade. It's a war he can't win. He'd be operating a couple of hundred miles away from his bases. He's not used to doing that. He's never